The conventional air conditioning technology operates at decreasing efficiencies as the temperatures outside increase. It puts undue pressure on our capacity to provide that electricity for those units. So our present infrastructure of providing electricity does not really take into account the growth of air conditioning loads, but it also underrepresents what that growth in air conditioning electricity consumption is, because the efficiency of those units is going to plummets during those heat wave events. And we see that actually play out here in the United States. Like, now it's become a perennial thing where utilities are asking people to turn off their air conditioners in, Texas, in Arizona, in California during those heat events, because even though they've tried to make their grids strong enough, projecting future growth of electricity consumption, that growth is outstripped by air conditioning, and the air conditioning load is higher than they had expected because of that inefficiency associated with it.
And we already have a very fragile the electric grid in the U.S. is extremely fragile. And so you think of the demands on this over time. You got EV adoption, which is going to happen. I'm very bullish on that. And then you've got a heating environment, which, electricity, air conditioning is expensive and it draws a lot of power.
Yeah,
so that's why you're going to see probably more rolling blackouts. I think that's what you're kind of talking about in like Texas. But I could not fathom hanging out all day in Texas and having to turn off my AC.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's so last year, the California grid was saved via Twitter, right? So the governor in September said, hey, people, we need your help. We're about to have a huge blackout across the state. Can you turn off your air conditioner? And luckily people did. So they were uncomfortable for a period of time, but it was enough to bend the curve of the imminent blackouts that they were going to have. So it was a big success story. However, you cannot rely on that as a way that you're going to, build an entire civilization.
Just go jump in your neighbor's pool. Everyone had pool parties for everyone.
Exactly. So, and then access to air conditioning is also becoming a question of civil rights, right? So the people that are most affected are people that don't have the infrastructure to put air conditioning or have air conditioning, and so there is a huge discrepancy between those that have access and those that don't have access. And so we're looking at people that are living in homes or in communities that are underinvested in or have lower infrastructure. We have people that are homeless, and that is becoming a larger and larger problem, that just are left outside in situations of high risk of being of dying from heat exhaustion or having serious medical conditions associated with it.
And what do you think about maybe transitioning it a bit to your company and how it works? What intrigued me when we first met was how you're really rethinking a lot of this from top to bottom. It's not just like one component. So in your opinion, where are those opportunities, and how do you think about Blue Frontier and how you want to address those?
So Blue Frontier is developing it's actually trying to completely rethink, reimagine, revolutionize the space of air conditioning to solve all the major problems that we are talking about. And many of them are technology problems, but also they are, market systemic problems that provide opportunities for changing things around in a way that creates enormous opportunity for a company to come in and take advantage of those, but also make the world a little a better place. So Blue Frontier is developing a new technology, a new way of doing air conditioning using a salt solution rather than a refrigerant to create the cooling effect in air. But also our processes are treating humidity and temperature. So air conditioning has two major components. You need to control humidity and you control temperature. And in fact, humidity is a bigger determinant of how you feel than just temperature.
We get spoiled in Seattle. We do not have a lot of humidity. I'm about to take my family on a trip, and we would go into Vietnam as part of it. And I keep telling my kids, like, oh, you're gonna have a rough time here. You're gonna want to shower 5 times a day.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's because of how humans are built, right? So humans reject their heat. Like, our physiology evolved to reject the heat that we produce inside our bodies to keep our temperatures constant by sweating and evaporating. Basically, we're always evaporating water from our skin, and we feel it dry, but it's actually happening all the time. And that evaporation allows us to reject an enormous amount of heat, which allows actually humans to live in pretty varied, temperature ranges. And it's an evolutionary gain that we have compared to most of other animals, in fact. But that means that if you're in a very humid environment, your capacity to evaporate that water that is coming out of your skin is reduced. So you end up sweating. You can have actually, I live here in Florida, you can have temperatures that go very low. Like you can be at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, but if the humidity is close to 100%, you're still sweating.
Yeah.
And it's very uncomfortable. And so the idea of controlling humidity addresses the question of comfort, but also addresses the question of efficiency. Because if I am actually targeting the thing that makes you comfortable, rather than doing it indirectly by just controlling temperature, I can reduce the amount of energy that I consume and make it such that it fits exactly what a human needs to stay in the comfort zone.
And to be clear, are you saying that most air conditioning today does not focus on humidity at all? It's just temperature?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if you look at your thermostat, there's no button for humidity control. That's because the air conditioner is just not designed for that. Yeah. And it's a fundamental aspect of the technology. So the conventional air conditioning technology reduces the temperature of refrigerant by reducing its pressure. And in doing so, it drops the temperature of air that is passing over a heat exchanger where this refrigerant is passing. So it's able to reduce the temperature, but it's doing nothing directly associated with humidity. The only way that it can control humidity is by overcooling the air such that it can condense water, and then it brings that air into your space. And even though you remove water, actually at that point, that air is still at saturated 100% relative humidity point, or close to that. So anybody that's close to a vent is going to be very uncomfortable, and you've ended up overcooling the building.
Which, by the way, is most air conditioning. And I'll pick on Florida for a minute. Most of the time in Florida, I bring a really warm jacket. Not for being outside, it's for the buildings. It's so cold there when you go inside.
I'm in my office in the middle of summer. Here's my jacket.
So cold. Last time I was there, I was in Miami, and I was shivering in my hotel room because of this. Yeah. And then outside, exactly the opposite.
Exactly. And it's because it's the only way for you to stay either, within a humidity point is by overcooling. And that's important because, your hotel room, you don't want it to smell bad. You don't want it to develop mold. Yeah. You don't want deterioration of the furniture, etc. All of those things are humidity things.
Okay. So you're addressing it with salt, number one, which is different. Two, you're addressing the humidity factor.
Exactly.